Hey Donna, so we're going to be discussing another aspect of the educational system in Israel. Can you tell us more about which aspect of it and what we have in store for us today?
Yeah, sure, Ariel. So thank you again for having us today. We're going to be talking specifically about the high school part of the educational system. I know that a vast majority of the Olim that get to Israel with families, their kids go to high school at some point or another, and it is a tricky period of time because it's the part that, the age part is a sensitive one, and also it's before university or before the army. So there's a lot of important aspects to take into account. And so if you let me share my screen, I will actually go on into a presentation that I have for us today. um, so here we go. There's one conception that I really wanted to touch upon before starting to talk about the specifics and the technical part of high school. It is important to understand the way Israelis see high school over here in Israel. Schools for children can appear to be a little bit less strict or less uh, given importance as in other countries, specifically in Europe or in the US. Okay, it is important to understand that, as we said last time, studying hours are less. Afternoons are pretty empty for children, and that's an important concept to, not have your children not know what to do after school, because there's no such a thing as homework and things like that. So it's a period of time that you have to, at home, try to fill in somehow, one way or another. The degree of exigence for studies is not so high, and I'll say why. Specifically because the army is something that comes in between high school and university. Therefore, high school is going to be interrupted by the army, and anyway, university will be only later on if the kid wants so or not. Okay, there's the other options. So one of the really strongly recommended things to do is, first of all, get acquainted with the system, be aware of the benefits and also of the gaps. Okay, and try to push your children academically as much as you would do abroad, or at least try to keep that bar still up, and also guide them towards the fact that even though it's not going to be immediately, university is the next step in the academic life. And so for that, it is important to still check which kind of topics are you studying at school, the modules, what we call. We're going to take a look at it immediately, and also the examinations that are going to be useful for university. It's not necessary to leave them or to leave those for after the army and only before university. Rather, take a look at what kind of degree your child is, tends to go towards, and see what the conditions are for a admission, and go to the modules that are specific for that, the grades that are specific for that kind of degrees, and also the exam, the entry exam that they're going to have to take towards that. Okay, so it's important to guide your child. It's not that there are no options after the army to, go back to your bagruyot, which is high school exams and stuff like that, and ameliorate your grade. But it's going to be costly, and it's going to be an effort that is not given to everybody to go back to studying maths and Hebrew and English and literature and stuff like that. It's better to actually get it all done, before the army. And when you have to actually apply for university, you have all of those ready for you. All right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does.
Good. So let's skip into. Oh, sorry. I need to. This is not working for some reason. Just a moment. Let me go back into the presentation. So yeah, let's go on into another option, an option that can be very appealing to Olim Khadashim. And I'm going to talk about the pros and the cons of it. Okay, there's such a thing in Israel as international schools. Okay, this is seemingly perfect for Olim. You know, there's schools in English, in schools in French. Some of them have American curriculum, some of them English curriculum, and the other ones have got the more European style of academics. I want, though, to remind people that regarding these options, there's a few aspects to take into account. First of all, these schools are very much geared towards expats living in Israel. So not so much for people that want to get integrated into the Israeli system, but much more for people that are staying for shorter periods of time. They're not so interested in getting to know the language and not so much in getting settled within the Israeli mindset. Okay, so that is one thing that is important to take into account when considering international schools, which is a very comfortable system for Olim, I would say, because you study in your language, but then there's the downsides to it. Second thing is that a graduated student from this kind of schools goes to a university and applies for university, and the university system in Israel does not know really how to deal with this kind of certificates. It's going to be almost for certain taken as an international certificate and not an Israeli one, although the school is in Israel and although the school goes by the Israeli education ministry. Okay, but most of the universities would ask, right. So what is it? Is it an Israeli diploma or an international diploma? What's the bottom line? Okay, that you studied in Israel, but what is it? And if it's in a foreign language, which is what happens with the schools, they're going to need to face the process of translating the curriculum, the certificate or the diploma, into converting the transcript, the grades transcript, and also sometimes into going for a specific committee, admissions committee, before they can actually understand whether they're eligible for that specific degree and university that they are applying for. Are you okay with this? Are we on the same page? Are there any questions that you
Yeah, I think
think?
so. So just to sum up, like the international schools are really for individuals who are not living in Israel long term. They plan on going back home,
Yeah.
and the confusion part, I'm still a little not getting clear on, like like what's the difference? Like why would they think it's an Israeli diploma or an international diploma?
Well, look, it's a diploma that is issued in Israel, but the curriculum is different than the Israeli schools, right? And the language is taught that they are taught in is different as well. So for them, also the grading system is different than the Israeli one. So for them, it is considered to be an international school, and then you have to go through the process of converting all of that into the Israeli system, grading system, and averages, and all these different things. So that is one thing that one other aspect that is important regarding these international schools. I will even say more than that, that the admission system of these international schools is also favoring expat like students than the newcomers or new Israeli citizens. Okay, so the strictness of the admission for new Israeli citizens is a little bit harder to get into than for a new expat, for an expat. Okay, so that's the admissions part. It is important to understand that not for sure people are going to get accepted into the schools as new Israelis. All right.
Got
So
it.
the other thing. And the third or the fourth, I think, aspect that is important to take into account is that these are all international private schools. There's no such a thing as an international state funded school. And the fee for that is usually equivalent to, it goes from $7,000 a year to $15,000, depending on the high school. All right. So those are the different aspects to take into account. I'm going to say that nonetheless, if Olim Khadashim choose to actually go into these options, there are a list and a number of international schools that are very high quality, very open-minded in their mindset, I would say, and in the integration of different cultures, different origin countries, and stuff like that. So we're gonna go through quickly through the list for people to get an idea of the schools that exist. Okay. Um, so the first one is the Anglican International School. As you might understand, the curriculum over there, it is an American and International Baccalaureate, which is a good thing for people that want to open their doors up for international universities, but it goes to more of a Christian Catholic kind of kind of students. Then you have the Walworth Barber American International School in Even Yehuda. Even Yehuda is close to in Netanya, so a little bit like north from Tel Aviv. That is a popular school for expats and also for Olim. Sometimes it is very hard to get into it. And so you have over here a little bit more of the details of the kind of people that go there. So usually diplomats, children, and so on and so forth. You go through a very strict process of admissions with interviews and so on, and with like an online application forms. And further on. Then you've got the Jerusalem American International School. You've got the Treehouse International School is also an important or a popular one because it's located in the center. So it would be Herzliya. This one goes by the British and American curriculum. So it's a mix, it's a combination of both. And then you would have the Kfar HaYarok, which is in Ramat HaSharon. This is a boarding school, and this one has a very particular mindset towards peace, sustainability, and so they integrate an equal percentage of Israeli students, Palestinian students, and international students as well. And this one is specifically for people, for students that are more than 15 years old. And then you've got the French options as well, which is not bad at all. This is more towards a European system. Marc Chagall, Collège de Frères. You've got the Lycée Maïmonide is a very popular one in Holon, for example, which is also central part of Israel, and so on and so forth. But again, you would get your diploma in French or in English, and that is something that you need to keep in mind. Okay.
So
If
just
the
can I ask a
Yeah,
quick question? So like the private international schools, right? Like I know some of them are like run by like the church or whatever. So like do they teach like Christian values in the school or it's just secular studies?
you would have a curriculum that is a little bit more oriented towards that. The limit of it is set by the what we'll see afterward. Well, the Ministry of the Education Ministry, but yeah, you would have that kind of pivoting towards that,
Okay.
right? Now, I want to say on the brighter side of this, if you're not opting for an international school because of the different things that I said, or because of financial situation or whatever it is important to understand that Olim Chadashim, new immigrants, aren't a small population in Israel. They actually, on the contrary, represent a very significant part of the population. And so that's why schools are already adapted towards, accommodating the students into them. So there are some schools that are more adapted towards that, and some that are a little bit less. It depends mostly on the area, on the city that you choose for living in it. So popular cities for Olim, like for example Ra'anana, Modi'in, Jerusalem, Netanya, would accommodate a little bit more these students by having some tools that help them. So for example, support groups or teachers that do speak English and can, case by case, come to the student and help a little bit more or support a little bit more. They would have, some hours for the students to come in and get their materials straight, or for example they would give some advantages or facilities, I would say, for exams. So for example, a little bit more time for the students that do not comprehend Hebrew so well, or oral taking exams. That is something that they do not do usually with Israeli students, and so on and so forth. Okay, so these schools, Israeli schools, would not commit specifically to being a for Olim school, but they would actually tell you that they do have the supporting systems. Okay, so it's a matter of researching ahead of time, getting a sense of the school, and trying to understand which ones are more towards Olim and easing the step for Olims, and the ones that are not so much for that.
Sounds good. And you obviously do the research for them if they sign up for your services, right?
Of course, yes, depending on the necessities, depending on the degree of Hebrew of the student or the willingness to get integrated and so on and so forth, we just go forward to looking for the school that would suit the student best.
All right, perfect. Sounds good.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. So that is it for today. I hope that this gives a general idea of the options that Olim have for high schools. I'm going to talk about high school itself and the technical parts of it a little bit more in our next video. Okay,
Sounds good. Looking forward.
great.